What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. In today's episode we're going to talk a little bit more about why I decided to go for the sand substrate and reinstate the bubble wall in the Goldfish Mega tank. Now in the past episode you would have seen I did a complete drain down and a complete sort of refurb on the Goldfish Mega tank. If you haven't already seen that, then please just click in the top of the video and you can go on and view that. Now in that video I didn't talk about too much as to why I decided to go this route. As it was the weekend and I had the full day to get it done, I really wanted to just get it done, get it over with, and then sort of explain afterwards why I've decided to do this approach. And obviously the goldfish were in a vat and I was under a little bit of time pressure, so I didn't really have too much time to go into the details, which I can in today's video. So as you can see, we now have two large air stones at the back of the Goldfish Mega tank, and we also have the sand substrate. Now one of the main reasons I had to drain the Goldfish Mega tank and take them all out was to repair the filter in the back of the aquarium. Now as I mentioned in that previous video, filter that I've built in this aquarium is made out of acrylic. I believe it's 5 or 8 millimeters thick, and it is that box section in the rear right hand corner as if you were facing the tank. Water travels over the weirs, down through filter fleece, down through sponges, through around 35 kilos of biomedia, and then there's a large 6,000 litres per hour pump which pumps it up through a 25 watt Yamitsu pond UV and then back into the aquarium. Now what happens is every time I do a water change, I probably change around 40%. I empty the water in the tank, but the filter stays completely full of water, so there is a lot of weight pushing out onto the filter, and as that water drains down, that weight is continually pushing out every time I do a water change. Now the filter is only silicone together, and you may or may not know silicone doesn't adhere amazingly to acrylic. It does attach to glass very well, but acrylic not so much. And over the past year and a half, the filter eventually failed after me doing a water change every single week. So what I've done, I've completely repaired it, and I've also drilled 2 holes in the bottom left hand corner to stop this from happening again. Water can move freely in and out of the aquarium, but the holes are quite small, so not a huge amount of dirt or detritus is going to get into the filter and cause any issues. So it means that this is not going to happen again. If you look at the all-in-one filters in the aquariums like the Aqua 1 tanks, you'll notice at the bottom they have a small slit or a small hole, and this is exactly the same reason, and this is exactly what I've done on this. So hopefully that filter should last for years to come, and I'm not going to have to worry about that again. Now I thought, whilst I was doing this repair, do I want to keep the tank as it is, or do I want to maybe change it up a bit, give it a little bit of a refresh? Now you may know in the past I had 80 kilos of black sand in the aquarium, and I did really like it, but that's when the tank was running on an airlift system and the clarity wasn't very good. There was loads of detritus getting trapped in the sand, and it was leading to water clarity and water quality issues. However, now we have a higher turnover rate with the 6,000 litres per hour pump, and we also have that large UV, which I changed the bulb in as well to make sure the clarity is really good. Now I decided I really wanted to try sand again. I've had lots of people saying they absolutely hated the bare bottom tank, and also on the flip side I've had lots of people saying they absolutely love the algae carpet. But I think I had the algae carpet running for around 8 months now or something like that, and I kind of got a little bit bored of it. The algae carpet grew really well the first time, started to die back once I started using koi clay, so I regrew it again, but it ended up being patchy in quite a lot of areas, and it definitely wasn't that aesthetically pleasing. On a smaller tank where I could get a lot more light, or if I had probably double the amount of light, I could probably grow it a little bit better and make sure it had a nice coverage. But to be honest, it didn't look amazing, and when I had lots of visitors as well, they thought the tank looked a little bit dirty, and it was a little bit off-putting as well. So I decided it's time to change, and it's time to try something new and see if I can get the substrate to work again in the Goldfish Mega tank. So this time I decided to make a few changes. I wasn't going to go with 80 kilos of sand, but I was going to half it and go with 40 kilos. This means that there is a very thin layer of sand, no more than 2 centimeters throughout the entire tank, meaning that the goldfish can constantly graze, turn it over, and make sure there is little to no areas of dirt and detritus that can build up in this tank. Because the last thing I wanted to do was put lots of sand in and then have to gravel vac for an hour, if not longer, every single week to clean it, because I want this to be nice and easy for me to keep, which means I can maintain it and will put more effort into looking after it because it's not so much of a chore. So having that thin layer of sand meant that the goldfish could go through it, they can make sure there was no dirt and detritus buildup, and obviously it's another media or substrate for bacteria to colonize and for essentially the biological cycle to occur on every single piece of sand within the aquarium. Now, not only does it provide the functionality of them to graze through it and also it to be a part of the biological cycle, but it also provides a little bit of enrichment. Now, every time I feed the fish, obviously they go rooting around the substrate and they can look for food, which is a little bit more of a naturalistic tendency. Now, there is always that debate, and I've said it many times on the channel: do you go for a pristine environment with a bare bottom, meaning that no dirt and detritus can build up, which means the water quality is slightly better, or do you go on the flip side, have an aquascape tank, have a substrate based tank where there is a little bit more enrichment? The goldfish are probably a little bit happier, but maybe you're suffering slightly on the amount of nitrogenous waste and detritus that builds up around plants, around decor, etc, etc. So I've gone for the sort of middle ground. I've given them a little bit more enrichment in the tank. Obviously they're still going to be getting all their food, but they've got something to root around in, something to look around in, and I think it creates a really nice aesthetic as well. The tank is definitely brighter. The colors of the fish are definitely brighter as well. And I've had a few people say, wow, the tank looks a lot brighter, and it definitely does. The fish look absolutely amazing, and I'm very, very happy with it. Now, also it meant I could put my air stones back in the tank because they would be completely covered. There is no risk of them coming up or rising to the surface, and the fish can't knock themselves or knock them out of place because they are covered with the sand, and I siliconed them in place so they don't look unsightly either. Now, obviously I have 11 fancies in the tank and I want to get that number up to 15 fish, so I thought it was a good idea to add the air stones back into the aquarium because it means that we get increased oxygen and also increased water quality for these fish. Now, as I'm going to slowly come into summer and get this tank up to full stocking capacity, I need to maintain and make sure there is enough oxygen, and also the CO2 can gas out of the water as well, because with 15 fancies and no aeration, only the return pump, I may run a risk of having low DO or low dissolved oxygen in the tank. So not only do the bubbles provide nice aesthetics, they also provide a functionality to the system as well. Now, you will notice I didn't put any aquascape, or I haven't put any plants, any rocks, any wood, anything like that. And I'm still a firm believer that the fish of this size, I'm not talking about general small fancies like we have in the super simple budget aquarium, but fancies of this size can and will damage themselves at every opportunity. You'll notice, probably not on this side, but on Calippo, on the other side, he has a few white scales, and this is because he actually knocked some scales out in a completely bare tank when they were breeding. So that just goes to show you, with nothing in the tank, they can still damage themselves. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do an aquascape or anything in this tank. I may in the future add a few large rocks, or I may add a sort of central feature, but it will be nothing too crazy. But I'm really happy the fish now have a little bit more enrichment. I'm really happy with the aesthetic look of the environment, and it's given it a little fresh look in 2024. So hopefully you've understood my reasoning, why I've decided to get rid of the algae carpet, try something a little bit new and experiment, try something a little bit different. I always feel like with the fancy goldfish, it's nice to try something new, nice to freshen up the environment and give it a new lease of life, keep me interested, keep the fish interested. So that is essentially my reasoning as to why I changed the Goldfish Mega Tank in the way I did. Now, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you probably would have found out all of this information around 2 weeks ago, something like that. So you probably already knew all of this information anyway. If you're not following me on Instagram, the link is down below. But that's it on today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions or any queries, or if you've got any input how I can maybe make this tank better or something I can potentially change, then leave a comment down below. If you want your tank or setup featured in our Rate My Tank series or our tank tour series, let me know down in the comments, or feel free to send me an email. The email is down in that description, fancygoldfishfanatics@gmail.com. But that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.